Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here at the gallery for the opening of Dick Weiss's exhibition and Dave Walters' exhibition, and we're really delighted to have you both in the gallery.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Dick has been sort of a regular here and been exhibiting for 44 years.
I don't know, over 40. Before you were born.
Dave has been a very long time friend of ours and we've stayed connected, but we haven't done so many. That's perfect. Okay. Deal. We'll do that in 10 minutes.
All right.
Keep you guys busy.
And thank you guys for doing it virtually. Hopefully, we're going to start having real openings pretty soon.
I hope so.
If everybody gets their vaccination.
Put the word in.
Yeah, please get it.
So we're going to do this as a live exhibition walkthrough tonight. And so I apologize in advance for the road noise and stuff that you hear in the background. We'll try and speak loudly and make sure everybody can hear us. And what we will ask everyone to do, I think probably Miles has already asked you in the chat, but we'll ask you to turn your video off and your mics off. We'll walk through Dick's exhibition with him, hear about the work and his process, and then we'll walk through Dave's exhibition with him, do the same thing, and then at the end we'll have some time for question and answer. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any time, and then we'll come back to that at the end of the walkthrough.
Yes. Now, make sure I get cut off so there's plenty of time for Dave.
Okay,
right?
we'll tell you when your time is up.
Yeah, okay, please. No hook, but just
No
tell
more.
me. Okay. Anyway, about my show, everything starts usually with a little bit of a spark. And in this case, my good friend, Paul Marioni, Lynn and I visited him in Guanajuato in the middle of Mexico. And I noticed that when a lot of the Mexicans built walls, they started with an X number of bricks and they built the wall to a certain point with those bricks. But when we ran out of bricks, they started putting whatever they had around, whether it was cement blocks or tires or pieces of log, they just put all of that in to build the wall up. And I love that idea, sort of use what you have to see that you can make something with it. So Jim Flanagan, Fremont Antique, makes very beautiful sheet glass. And a lot of my friends, Dave and others, have given me glass they've made themselves. And so these are almost like unique pieces of, you could think of them as fabric. If you're going to make a crazy quilt, I want to try not to change the way I get them and balance them, put them together, and build my own Mexican walls. And so this is one right here where some of this glass, like Jim Blue and Fremont Antique, broke like this. I would have never thought to cut this sheet like this. And so, as Jim said, I'm pre-cutting your glass for you when you buy these pieces, these shards. And sure enough, but so you basically, it's just, I see it sort of like trying to be alive, where you take what you have, and your life is always a compendium of good stuff and bad stuff, and you stack it all up and try to make it look okay. Same for my life, same for these windows. Anyway, do them in different colors. Blue is a very vibrant, gorgeous color. It's usually a lot of people's favorite color, actually, when they talk about commissions, that blue is the most favorite. And
Dick, can you tell us so these are huge panels. How are you composing these in your studio?
That's a good question. Okay, I remember again, the idea of a wall, which is like stacked rocks or whatever. And so I usually build from the bottom up, which I sometimes fool myself by when the composition is leaded and done, I'll flip them upside down. There's usually one or two screens where the panel is built this way, but it looks better that way. It's the classic that you do the very best you can, and then don't get freaked out when it's better upside down. Anyway, so in this case, you see this one is stacked. I see them as series, boink, boink, boink. In this one, I wanted a different sort of wall effect where vertical stones this way, and then a horizontal band, almost like, this and this, and then back to vertical again. At least that was the idea. And it's just like any journey. You get a little idea, I'm going to walk to Tukwila, and then you just starting to head there. You may not end up in Tukwila, but you'll end up somewhere interesting. And so that's my initial idea, this way, this way, this way. And basically a wall is a grid. And grids are so great because, you know, you got a very strong structure, A, B, C, D. I don't need to tell you what the next thing is. So you can play with it so much and it's still a grid, A, B, C, D, F, A, B, C, D, Z. I mean, it's just, I usually build, I got crazy toward the top. You see, I sort of paid no attention after a while to the grid format up here. And that often is what happens.
Dick, one of the things that I really enjoy about these windows is the abstract nature of the window and how you use here, like you use a good strong blue next to a pink, and these elements that are popped into the windows really accentuate the window, but then feel so comfortable in their places. There must be, you must give it a lot of thought where those.
It's very, very instinctual. I mean, you, like I say, you're going along, and at a certain point you want to jump somewhere else because you don't want to keep putting every foot right out in front. And so often I'll throw a different color in when I'm tired that why am I always staying in the red format? So in this case, as I got toward the top, I started introducing other colors. And, you know, then you step back, you just, I find if you don't worry too much about things, your internal dialogue is wonderful. It's when you're freaking out going, oh no, I'm no good at color. Oh no, this isn't working too well. If you just simmer down.
But doesn't that come with time, a lot of time? I mean, you've been doing these for so many years now. That must be, you must be have become comfortable with that approach.
One of my favorite things to say is lower your standards. And so it's like, you know, keep it easy. And it's amazing how your little voice pops up and says, let's put a little green in.
That must be something that comes with age too.
Right.
The ability to do that.
Well, that's the idea, is you try to do the same thing for 50 years and hopefully you look like a magician before you're dead. That's the idea.
Can we get a good long shot of the room? I think it's so beautiful.
So anyway, these are obviously, there's a white one of, and there's the pink one of rocks, and there's a mixed one. That's the last one I did where I mixed the colors more freely. And then this could be seen as a rock wall really, but not necessarily. It's more of a collage. My friend Dante Marioni, he makes these beautiful cylinders that are also sold by Sarah and Bill. And one of the things I say about stained glass is the magic of stained glass is I can take one of Dante's $15,000 pieces and turn it into a $500 piece of glass. That's the magic of stained glass. So anyway, those are Dante's things. Jim Flanagan at Fremont Antique would take Dante's reject pieces that he was not happy with and then add white and blow them out into a sheet. And so these are, they get a little bit distorted. All the, see, the stuff's called, no, what's it not, Marini, what are, pulling cane, what are all the lines? I'm sorry. What is the, yeah, it's just cane work, it's distorted. There you go.
There's some reticello in there.
Yes. Anyway, so, and.
Can you talk, this is such a good example of how you use the clear glass and the negative space. You talk about, you have kind of a Zen philosophy, I've heard you say about that.
I love clear, and clear is a case where you're obviously letting the background in, you know. I mean, what's behind it becomes an issue, whether it's a wall or that, but your eye respects the plane of the glass. It's funny how when I take a photograph of this window, you're looking right through in the photograph and you're seeing everything. But when you visually look at the window, your mind reads it on this plane and you forget about the outside of it. And to me, it's a palette cleanser. It sort of allows you to add all sorts of stuff. It's also about fragmentation. Our lives are incomplete. Nothing is perfect. We're going to do the best we can. And so same thing here. There's a sense of incompleteness, of not we don't have it all together totally. We're doing the best we can. I always liked it. Somebody asked Bakunin, I think it was, how do you know when your compositions are finished? And he said, they're never finished. I merely abandon them at some point. And so there's a bit of that. I mean, I could have kept going on this, but at a certain point, my little eye says, okay, that's good enough. I like that. And in this case, I did this panel first, which was kind of wild and crazy. And I didn't want as wild as crazy on the second panel. So the second panel is a call and response to the first. On all these two panel things, the first sets out on a journey. And the second panel says, you know, you're not going in the right direction exactly. And it's supposed to complete the journey. So it's basically, like I say, the two panel screens are call and response.
So Dick, you're saying that the pieces of glass themselves represent the glass as you find it?
Yes.
Or you don't cut it?
I do sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they're not, yeah, I have to cut it sometimes. And of course I cut all the negative space, but you know,
And the lead plays.
it only sometimes, you know, it bugs me. If the piece is not the right size, I'll usually shave it away is what happens. I'll go, there's something wrong about this, and I'll shave a little bit, because occasionally if you go for it, you go, oh crap, I cut off too much of it. So I kind of would work on, like in this piece here, maybe this piece actually started to go up here, but then you had a tiny little void, which wasn't much. So I shaved this piece once or twice, and I didn't want to go too far to where I look at it, go, now I shaved it down to what I don't like. And your eye, you just have to step back all the time. So it's part of my exercise program to just step back and look at it all the time. Anyway.
So these are really, they're like paintings.
Yeah, I love paintings. I often joke that I'm basically a 2D guy trapped in a 3D world, but it's but all my friends like Dave are wonderful 3D people. And so it's a whole different thing when it's in a surround situation. As Sarah says, there isn't only two sides. These truly are not paintings. There's a back. They do actually, you know, you rotate around them, they'll look different. There's always what I call the good look and the bad look. In this case, the look where the light pours through it is the good look. The light where it hits it on the surface is what I call the dead look. But because I work in a window, whenever I build things, I always work in a window. So you're always looking in natural light.
Speaking of the window, there's some nice small pieces there too. You can see hanging in the trees. They look beautiful there hanging.
Yeah, and again, here's they're a little more of a Johnny one note for sure. But you're trying to take it, you have a beautiful rondelle here. And so Jason, done by Jason Christian. And so he gave it to me, and this is a piece of Spectrum. This is early sheet glass made here in the Northwest. And they were changing their run from one thing to another, from a white to a clear. And so this was seen as a reject sheet because they still had a little bit of the previous run in the sheet. And so I loved it. And it seems like this is like the world's most expensive sheet glass next to some of the cheapest colored glass you can get. And it's just a lovely compendium. Yeah.
What about the tree pieces? So I know your show title refers to Seafield Creek,
Right.
which is an important place in your life.
Yes.
And a place where I think you get a lot of inspiration.
I have a cabin there.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, you know, when you go out to the cabin, it's all about nature, trees, rocks, water. And it's really good to be low to the ground, and there's no electricity out there. And of course, I love natural light. My partner, Lynn, gets sick and tired of me saying, turn off the light, you know, as it starts to fall dark. I love to watch the transition. By the way, if you guys ever buy a screen, the thing to do is wait till dusk. If you like wine, pour yourself a glass of wine or beer, sit in front of the window, the screen, and watch it change as the night comes on. Because first of all, there is no such thing as dark. There's always light. I mean, unless you bury yourself in an absolute tube, there's always ambient light. In the city, there's tons of it. And so they never go dark. And sometimes some of these windows look just absolutely the best at night. So the transition from daylight to night is wonderful, but you don't get that with artificial light. So
what about this screen that's so low? This is something new for you.
yeah,
Where you're not doing the traditional high screen.
right,
Something low you can look right over the top of.
right. It's trying to do something different. I always did so many screens in this format where it's all, I call it human scale. It's all of us. I mean, you guys almost look like screen sizes right there, all of you. So do something different. And that's just to see what it does. And of course, this is more wall-like.
Well, I like a lot what it does to the space.
Yes.
You know, being low like this.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Sarah's question about the trees, that's a tree right there. And I've done a few trees. You've got another tree over there. Ben Moore gave me some wonderful glass that I turned into these tree formats. And I like to have my cake and eat it too. Bill was talking about how much I love abstraction, which I do. But to me, abstraction is always a reference to something in the real world. That's what makes abstraction nice. It reminds you of something, whether it's a cow in the sky or your grandmother or whatever. And so these things both kind of look like a tree. They kind of look like a figure. I could have called this a couple. In fact, I'm not sure what the title is on this, but what is the title on this one?
Trees clowning.
Trees clowning. Okay, right. See, and of course, this is what I would call, you know, the dead look in a way, because the light is on the face of it. If the light, in some ways, the better view is in the back because the light flows through it, but it's fine. Everything's good. They're meant to be seen in many different lights. And
This is sort of an unusual piece in that it is more, I mean, there's not a lot of clear glass in this piece at all.
No,
And
no, and that actually, as a result of several times, people say to me, you know, you see through your screens too much. You know, a screen is meant to block. You're supposed to block the view with the screen. So yeah, I took it as a challenge to try to build things that were opaque. And I try to kick the clear habit. I'm so into it that I try to have some that don't have clear. I just love the clear so much. It is what it is. So
in this, where using that white, I see the lead lines so much more as like a graphic element.
yes.
They come,
Yes.
that strong black line comes through so strongly.
Yeah, see, now this uses the exact same glass. And this is, if it were a little more with light blowing in here, even though it's the lead lines still, their lead lines are always powerful. But the light comes through, so anyway, yeah.
Awesome.
There we have it. This is every 2 or 3 years a show, but no, 10 more in some cases. Thank you very much.
Dick, thank you.
Yeah.
Take a look at David.
This is a great entrance, Dave. It looks so cool when you come and look in here. This is a cool look.
Maybe we can start right here with this piece, which is.
I don't know if you caught that, but it basically it's my tongue-in-cheek response to the hashtag #MeToo movement and the lack of accountability that a lot of people seem to exhibit. So a lot of the show sort of represents that sentiment of the strange times that we live in right now.
So what's the guy doing?
So it's a teapot. It's Pinocchio, and you can see the buttons sort of refer to his toxic masculinity there a little bit. And these are the items of restraint, maybe, that are sort of keeping whatever little dignity here. And this is his flaming phallus here, representing the sort of liar pants on fire idea. So
Dave, just for folks who are joining us who might not know about your process, so these are all blown glass.
yes,
works that then you back to your studio and you paint on them with enamels,
Right.
right?
Yeah, it's a low fire vitreous enamel. One of my mentors over here, Dick Weiss, who's shown me some of the finer points of painting. But it's essentially, I unlike Dick and our friend Walt, I don't use a brush. I use a pen and ink style. So it's a little bit more of a graphic, very sort of edited line quality, or I guess, if you will. So I'm pretty tight. A lot of the process is a reductive process after I lay the paint down. So most of the hours I spend on these is definitely spent in my studio, pecking away, painting, and coming up with imagery and ideas to put on these things.
So the figures you do, when you're doing the figures in the hot shop, you kind of create a series of blanks, essentially, that you're
Right.
so familiar. Yeah. I mean, you work a lot with really familiar stories from, what I think of familiar stories from my childhood, like
Right.
these fairy tales and.
Yeah. I try to cling to things or iconography that is sort of accessible to most people. And a lot of people have some access generally to Western fairy tales here in America. So a lot of the things that I refer to, I use those as sort of a metaphorical starting point to sort of tell my own narrative with.
Will you do, here we have some examples of the drawings and works on paper. When prior to doing your sculptural pieces, do you do drawings of them first?
I do, yeah. So I sculpt out the rough, I think of these as sort of canvases that inform the narrative ultimately. I try to leave them sort of open-ended when I first make these things so that I have some room to work with when I take it back home in terms of how I want to, let the narrative unfold. But I do, all these objects, I try to think of first as a piece of sculpture, and then secondly, yes, like an object that I can sort of further articulate the narrative to. So the drawings that are on the wall are all from a pandemic journal that I started. My girlfriend and I, Casey J. Skwadzinski, started at the beginning of the pandemic in the 70-day shelter in place order. We decided to do a drawing, sort of a visual journal or 30-minute drawing a day. Wow. Exercise, which ultimately lasted. This is the journal, actually.
Oh my gosh!
So
really?
Yeah, so it started out kind of simple. These are the 30-minute ones, and then as time went on, they got a little bit more articulated and time spent. And
that's amazing.
These are still the simple ones, but there's 70 of them. And as I went, like they're starting to get a little bit longer. I kept saying, how about another half an hour, another 50 minutes, and blah, blah, blah. And then pretty soon it was like, they started to take like hours and up to 10 hours. So,
but there was no shortage of time on your hands.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. And it was a way to blow off steam and sort of take some control or power over the situation of feeling powerless in a time when, the world seemed to be falling apart, our democracy seemed to be falling apart, and it was just sort of a mental health thing.
I mean, it's really kind of a fascinating, like, historic document in a way.
Yeah.
To see, like,
part of me wanted to tear it apart to because it would have made it easier to transfer all the pen drawings, but I didn't want to alter this thing because it does feel like a thing that is I can refer to later on. It was like this time that I went through.
Exactly. Let's walk inside. This is such an amazing installation.
So the theme is sort of feeling like you're trapped in a carnival of chaos. And that's sort of how I felt over the last 4 years. And in the first year or two, I was trying to figure out how to respond because I felt the need to say something about what was happening in our world. And I didn't know how to do it in a way I really didn't want to name names, so to speak, but I was hoping obviously to address the world I was seeing in chaos, the themes that were sort of more universal and a little bit less, what's the word? Polarizing, as you said. But as time went on, I just found it harder and harder not to say and see what I thought and felt. And so it started to filter into the sculpture, and then ultimately my journal too. And this is sort of the 4-year culmination of a lot of crazy feelings, thoughts, and ideas. And
has politics always been kind of central to your work?
not politics. I mean, it's cultural. The social condition is a thing that I think about a lot, and the world and the environment. Politics in general, like I don't want to get into the who's who and the naming names things, because time passes, names and people pass, and that stuff becomes sort of neither here nor there unless you can remember those particular times. And so I just felt like these times are not like any other times, and naming names and holding particular people responsible felt like the thing that I needed to do to feel better about myself and the message that I was trying to send. So
yeah, I mean, well, it's always been such an important role for society.
Yeah.
Kind of like hold up a mirror.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Da Vinci did it in his like allegorical way. Everybody sort of hid, meaning and trying to hold the status quo accountable for their misdeeds and things. And I feel like that's also a part of the art tradition, and that's something that I definitely, obviously, kind of gravitate towards. So
maybe you can, let's see, can we take a look at cars, maybe?
Sure.
Just kind of walk us through some.
Yeah. This one's called Heatseeker, and it's sort of our worldly infatuation, addiction to energy, and our need for consumption, and in particular fossil fuels. And this is just sort of the idea of like us sort of taking over our environment and affecting it in such a way that we end up cooking ourselves in the process of burning all this other stuff. So generally I regard the cars as like the top of the car is sort of the ambition, if you will, I guess. And the little icon at the front is the thing that drives the car. It's what it desires. And in this case, it's fire, the quest for fire. And the underside of the car represents the sort of unseen circumstance of the ambition on top. And then the wheels are just what gives the vehicle motion. So in some of the other cars, the imagery or the iconography on the wheels is the same idea. It's the thing that gives the vehicle its motion. It's makes it work, I guess, so to speak.
This is an especially powerful one.
Yeah, this is so obviously we've had issues with the southern border for quite a while. The whole world is dealing with a migration and an immigration and migratory emergency, and I don't think we've necessarily handled it in the most humane way. And this is sort of my way to sort of hold account to the way, hold some account to the way that we've been dealing with that, and then humane sort of way that we've pulled at the ladder behind us in the boat, lifeboat here. Sort of everybody that's here, I give a tradition of sort of not giving a lot of thought and condition to the people who are trying to have the sort of sense of security in life that we have. And this is the two people on the bottom of the car are Oscar and Valeria Martinez Ramirez, and he's a 25-year-old immigrant from El Salvador, and that's his daughter. She's 23 months old, and they died on June 16th, and they were trying to make her swim across the Rio Grande, and they didn't make it, and they drowned, and they became sort of a very emblematic image at that time of the crisis at the border and this sort of inhumane sort of condition, and look at how we were dealing with these people who are in crisis. So anyway, it's this idea that we're trying to help people on top, but then it's sort of like short alligator, crocodile arms in terms of the actual aid that we're giving these people, the illusion, and all the agencies in which, sort of facilitate how we conduct our immigration policy and border control. So that's what's going on with this car.
How about this roller coaster?
So I was photographing some work with the guy who photographed all this work, Russell Johnson, on the day of the Capitol riot. And at the time, it seemed sort of, we were getting little glimpses of the images that his wife and son were sending, and I just was having a hard time like understanding what was actually happening at the time. It didn't seem real. I thought it was a joke. It seemed so preposterous, and then it turned out it was not a joke. And so this is sort of the coup de grace in terms of how I regard the last 4 years and the exit of the Trump era in terms of his time in the White House. And you know, the top of the car, it's a 45 car, of course, representing the president. And again, the wheels are the thing that give it motion. It's the Trump Republicans or Trumplicans in one hub, Proud Boys in the other hub for the alt-right. And then Fox News for the misinformation, and then QAnon for all the conspiracy theories is on the last hub. And in the bottom of the car is a sort of perspective shot as you look up the Capitol building of the insurrection, and some of the familiar characters, the QAnon shamans in there, and the first guy that was arrested from Proud Boys and pled guilty, and several people that you might recognize, the guy holding the Confederate flag and stuff. So there's the result of all of the things that gave it life. And then it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, obviously. The start finish is a pretty short and final conclusion.
I love the detail that you got here with the just this little car just being held on by that.
Yeah, the little.
It's ready to.
Yep, doesn't take much. Yep, it's at the precipice. It doesn't take much. Yeah, it is precarious. It still feels precarious when I hang it on there, because it is literally just hanging by that hook, and it's you know, it's it's sort of a walking away is like a little bit of a faith thing, but it's held just fine for quite a time, and it's well put together. So I don't anticipate them apart. Jeremy Bosworth assembled it all and fabricated this mechanism here. I had these water jet cut at Da Vinci, and then he assembled it all. Did a great job. It was fantastic. Yeah. Labor of love, man. Did a killer job.
The craftsmanship throughout this entire exhibition is just like off the charts, Dave. It's so beautiful.
Well, I had a lot of help for sure. There was a lot of hands-on for this, and I appreciate all of the assistance that I've gotten from people like Dick has helped me. There's a long list of people, but
when you do the designs, do you have the idea of how you're going to paint them already from sketches?
I did this in Chicago. I did a residency I had a few years ago, so I knew essentially the idea of what the car was going to be. I knew it was going to address what it addressed. I didn't know the final, because none of this had happened yet. So the bottom of the car unfolded later, and then the idea of putting it on this track also with the rest of it sort of unfolded with the narrative in my head. So like I said, I start out with sort of a loose idea with the blown form as a canvas, and then allow for room in my studio to play and like move laterally and this way or that way, depending on what's going on. So
I'd have to say one thing about Dave is he's an exquisite glass blower.
Yeah.
These things are incredibly blown from glass blower. It's world class. Most people would take the applause and leave. At that point, he's only half done. Then he paints it, and he has to fire it. A lot of people
that's
that
scary.
paint don't want to fire it. They break things with the fire.
yeah, it's a risky.
So you are impressive.
All these hands,
Yeah.
feet, they're all hot sculpted.
Yeah, hot sculpted garage. They're all assembled hot. The only thing, I mean, obviously the armature and the wheels are assembled with hardware and stuff, but yeah, most of the things are all done in the hot shop.
So are these parts then, are they put on there hot, or are they glued?
Yep. I make like tubes. I make like a long weight tube, Supietti, and then I section it off, and so they're all blown. This is hollow all the way through to the hand's solid color, but this is all blown. Same with all the other arms and legs. There's little tungsten holes in all those so they can breathe.
So can you introduce us to the other characters in here?
Yeah, so this is the shmoo. I've taken some creative liberties in my reinterpretation of it. The original shmoo didn't have legs, had legs but no arms. My shmoos have arms but no legs. And the shmoo was a character that was born in the Little Abner comic strip back in the 40s. And it sort of represented abundance and self-sacrifice. It could become whatever the desirer wanted it to be. And I just thought it made a nice sort of metaphorical reflection of our relationship to oil and oil byproducts and plastic and all these things. And the shmoo was a lighthearted character, didn't have a lot of like worry, and it didn't require anything except oxygen to breathe, much like oil in terms of how we burn it and stuff. So I just saw a lot of parallels in terms of how the two sort of metaphors could work, different eras and different, because back then it was dealing with coming out of the Depression and World War II and this sort of idea of a utopian abundance of like, this object to become chicken or pork or beef, depending on how you cooked it, or it could be catfish, or it could bottle itself as eggs or any kind of dairy product. So I just thought it sort of like oil can be transformed, morph, and become all these other, peripheral objects that are, clogging up our world right now. And these things were bred like rabbits. So it's a sort of the ubiquitous nature of our relationship to the plastic world that we've created. So that's where the shmoo's coming from. It's just sort of like disregard for its own sort of future, I guess, in some ways.
And then these guys, a series of.
Yeah, the clowns are, so individual one is sort of a portrait of my, yeah, these are like my Humpty characters. I call them Maggot Clowns. This one's called Individual One. So as you go around, you can see he's got little icons that represent all of his endorsements from the Saudi family flag to North Korea, bag of money, Fox News. There's the Russian flag, National Rifle Association, Twitter. And anyway, yeah, he's sitting on the planet and the globe, and it's cracking beneath him as all the pillars of democracy are nullified in the bottom of the pedestal there. And this is another sort of idea here with the word truth, sort of letters in flames falling over around the clown.
So do you look at a lot of political cartoons in your life?
There's a few that I check out on Instagram that I subscribe to that are really pretty good. This one gal in particular, she just sponsors a lot of like some of the best ones of the day, and I just get a whole pile of them. And I've been checking those out a little bit, but I haven't really. I wouldn't say that any of them necessarily have informed my own. I do appreciate seeing what other people come up with and their ideas and things. Yeah.
Dave, you told me this is quite a personal one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's right. So I was in Australia. I guess it was 4 years ago now, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and I was doing some teaching there. And after I was done teaching, I was going to go to the coast and have a vacation. So I rented a car in Canberra and drove out to this place called Nowra. And I was a little nervous about driving because it's the alternate side of the road. So it was a little bit of an adjustment. And I was about 2 days in and I thought, I'm starting to get used to this. And I came to this place in Prince's Highway and I was turning into Nowra. It's a four-lane highway and it's 100-kilometer-an-hour zone. So 65-mile-an-hour zone. And I looked left and the coast was clear. And I just scooted right through and I was about halfway and I was like, wait a minute. And as I looked up, that actual truck that's in the mirror
Oh my God.
is T-boned me, and luckily saw me in time to rear and hit the rear quarter panel of the car, and I would be dead. I broke a few ribs and had a concussion, and they had to cut me out with the toe of the life, and the car was destroyed.
Wow.
But it was a very close call, and I feel lucky to be here for sure. And I'm just grateful that that guy was paying as close attention as he was, because I didn't give him a lot of time to react.
And you said it was a cement truck?
It was a cement truck.
Cement truck?
Yeah. And then, I have a history of getting hit by trucks. I was hit by a truck when I was 5 years old and almost lost my leg with a compound fracture. So I have a long history. I'd like to upgrade every time I come into a new automotive encounter.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyway, so I just incorporated that a little bit of my own personal narrative into the idea of what it feels like to be run over by this new wave of craziness. So, but that is thanks I forgot to mention that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how about this guy with all the legs or arms? Rather?
Arms. Yeah, this was sort of like my Shiva Humpty, and it's sort of like a response of like how to. It's the comical way of how do I respond and communicate to something that is so, obviously not something that is eager to have a considerate, thoughtful conversation on truth and fact and reality. So it's just sort of this like sending signals and not getting any response idea to the train
that's rapidly approaching
him, and as you go into the orifice of the mouth, the track is going right down there, and the same with this one here. The road goes from the mirror into the mouth of the Humpty here, so it's just sort of tying the two and feeling sort of overrun by it all.
So the mirrors, how are you making these?
So it was a cylinder that I slumped open, and then I cut the mirror to that sort of oculus shape, and this one to that sort of arched shape there. And then I painted it. And then when I painted it, I fired it onto a mold that slumped it into that form, and the same with this form. At the same time, I fired the enamel. So it gives it that sort of funhouse mirror sort of look. And then, Dick was kind enough to help me let it all up. And my friend Jeremy, who did the phenomenal metalwork in the whole room, in fact, did the stands for these two. So, yeah.
The installation of the room is really, to me, beautiful. The body of work in the space with the sun, gray walls, really handsome. So if you get a chance to come and see the show, you should definitely come and see the show.
Yeah, both exhibitions really move you around the space in an interesting way and keep you engaged.
There's a lot of aesthetic ground between the two shows.
Well, we're at about 5:50, so I want to make sure there's a few minutes for questions from folks.
Sure.
Maybe we can step out here and I'll jump on the chat and read you guys some questions.
Stand here.
Okay, this one's for Dick from KCJ. Can you tell us about the choice of for the beautiful asymmetry happening with the two sides? So the sort of different levels and heights.
It's it's a good question. Sometimes people don't tend to see these as art because they look too much like furniture. And so it is something that actually is useful, and you can use it if you want as furniture. But I'm deep in the crafts. I totally am behind. A cup that works is fine with me. I consider it ART as much as a painting, really. And so different heights, I think they do several things. They release you a little bit from the absolute format. It's got to be like this. And so I just played with it to try to make it a little more playful, and perhaps it could seem a little less obvious. And sometimes when some part, like in this first one here, was I did that one again on the left first. And I thought, oh, it's so, whatever. It's a little bit too Germanic in terms of kaboom. And so the right one, I wanted a little more smaller and with more transparent, so it was a little more playful. So it could release the uptight guy on the left a bit. And so that's why you try to make it look more like what collectors would hopefully think of as ART instead of furniture.
Somebody named Melissa, I can't imagine who that is saying, the new trees are gorgeous. I remember the old Traver posters of your trees from the 70s and 80s. And commented these trees actually remind her a bit of the figures that Charlie Harriet made using the
Yes.
the reading glass. And
I'm a compendium of my friends. And so they're in my head when I'm working. And people like this man here, Cappy, Walt, Paul, Bobway, all those people are, yeah, definitely.
And-
I love him. Charlie's a genius. As Russell said, small G. No, but he is.
And then she asks, how has the Pacific Northwest landscape influenced your work in ways not anticipated?
Oh, the cabin, being immersed in nature and realizing a lot of things. It's you could see it as a mess out there. Nature is not very orderly at all. It's like, clean this beach up, you know, and it's like the trees are leaning into each other. Trees can't fall over because when they do, they fall into other trees. So there's so many trees out there leaning. And of course, they have a tremendous, gorgeous, powerful beauty even when they're leaning. The ocean stacks rocks. You walk down a beach, all the rocks are the same size. You go another 80 feet, they're a different size. It's stuff like that affects me.
There's a few more comments in here, all just such lovely reviews from folks, from Taryn, from Ed McElvain, from Melissa, from Susan, from Tom Caston. I can go ahead and read through some of those so you guys can hear them. Tom, to Dave, the commentary of your art is wonderful. Serious topics juxtaposed with comedic characters.
No, thanks.
Tom has a question to Dick. How are Dick's window pieces attached to the window? Oh, the ones in front of the window. That's a good question. Draper, do you want to take that one?
No, they're not attached to the window. They're hung from the top of the window with very fine wire. We have a steel plate at the top of all our windows so we're able to use magnets and sealing and then drop wires around it.
That's a really nice solution for those, isn't it?
I definitely thought of that.
Yeah.
It's a tedious way of hanging, but I think it's very effective.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Okay, well, we're just about
An hour.
time here, so I think I'll share all of these other comments with you guys so you can see them because there's a lovely list of really nice comments from folks on community joining up to join the exhibition.
Sarah, do you want to say a little bit about our current situation here as far as visitors?
Sure, yeah, I can say, so we're still staying open our normal hours. Unfortunately, the building doors are locked. So when you arrive, you have to call for entry, but we're here from 10 to 6, Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 5 on Saturdays. And we hope you will come and visit because we would love to see you in the space. The virtual tours are awesome and we're glad that everybody's able to tune in, but it's not like seeing the work in person. So really encourage anyone to come in at any time. And then of course by appointment, if that's more convenient. And we're gonna hopefully be able to do openings sometime soon. Right now we're just kind of doing private by RSVP events, but looking forward in the coming months to having it open back up to normal first Thursday.
So if a group wanted to come, they would just call and say we'd like to.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have a group that wants to come, for folks who are vaccinated, if you're vaccinated, we're just following the guidelines about you don't have to wear masks if you're vaccinated with your group. For normal business hours, we're pretty much asking people to wear face coverings because we're not checking vaccination records at the door or anything. Yeah.
And if anyone's interested in possibly purchasing a piece, you can find all that information online.
Yep, absolutely, or just call us. We'd love to send you video, do a FaceTime call, whatever is most convenient for you. Thanks everyone so much, and thanks for taking time this evening to celebrate the opening of these beautiful shows.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
See ya.